Thank you, everybody. Okay, you can all be seated, please. Thank you. Okay, if we can have some quiet, please. If we can have some quiet, please. Okay, so apologies, we are running about 35 minutes behind time, but we will make up some time. So I'm the chairman of WIMCO. My name is Brian Lewis. I've been in place for 18 months. Now, WIMCO is a charity that supports High Wycombe, and we are probably one of the biggest Vinci towns outside of St Vincent. So there's 8,000 black African Caribbean people in the town, and there's 8,001. And of those, there's 6,500 from the Caribbean, mainly from St. Vincent. So we are a big town. Okay, so in terms of the charity, briefly, just to let you know what we do. So we're now from 26 members, we're now over 100 members. We have a Saturday school. So this morning we had 30 kids that come every Saturday. We make sure that they're educationally pushed. We want them to achieve. We've also had GCSE revision classes for our Year 11 kids, 2 years now on the trot. We had 30 kids that come over last year, and all 30 kids achieved and exceeded their grades, okay? So we're pushing. For the senior citizens, we've got funding from various charities. So we've got 30 let's say elderly, senior citizens that come every week. And what we do, we give them 3 hours, an hour of exercise. We have an hour of fun, bingo, just to get together, an hour of lunch. We have speeches on dementia, scams, etc., etc. So we make sure that we look after our senior citizens. We've also introduced, Prime Minister, the old days. Remember when we used to go to the seaside? Remember those? We've reintroduced those. So we've got 4 coaches to go into Barry Island. 4 coaches going to Barry Island. So we're doing good things. Lastly, we also have a Christmas party for the senior citizens. So if you're a senior citizen and you fancy a Christmas party on us, then please come along. Okay, so that was a brief introduction of WIMCO. So we have a program. We're going to have a prayer first of all. So we're going to ask Rosemary Artman to come and give us a prayer. Give her an introduction. Thank you.
I greet the Holy Spirit. I greet you, Honourable Prime Minister. I greet you all in the mighty name of Jesus. God is good. Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you today. We come to you because we can't go to anyone else. We know that you are King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and we thank you that we can come together. I pray, Father, in the name of Jesus, that you will continue to bless our leader, Right Honourable Ralph Gonsalves, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, and his ministers, as they continue to lead our beautiful country, as they continue to work and labour for the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We pray, Lord, in the name of Jesus, that you will bless the sky, the sea, the land, that the land will be fruitful and plentiful. We pray for prosperity. We pray for healing. We pray, Lord, my Father, that in the name of Jesus, that we will continue as citizens of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, whether near or far, to grow in strength and power. We thank you for what is going to be said today. We thank you for Journeying Mercies, for bringing our Prime Minister so far in safety. And we thank you as we listen to what he has to say in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen. So let's just talk about the logistics. So in terms of a fire alarm, we've got fire exits here, and then through the back there. So if you do hear a fire alarm, please use the exits. We have food on sale afterwards because we know some of you have come a long way. So in the kitchen, when we finish the proceedings, we've got some food on sale. As I said earlier, the Minister Council has kindly given you all a free soft drink, one each. Okay? And then there's a bar for all those that want stronger drinks. So next we're going to have the national anthem. So on your seats, you should see, if you can all be upstanding. So on your seat, you should see the national anthem. Okay, so we're going to play. Shh. Thank you all. So we're going to invite the Member of Parliament, Steve Baker, to say a few words. Come on, introduce him.
Prime Minister, Minister Councillor, staff of the High Commission, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm absolutely delighted to extend a welcome to Prime Minister Gonsalves to Wycombe. You're very welcome, sir. Delighted to be here with you. You have already blessed me with a great welcome and some really wise conversations. Do I need to start again, or have you caught the sound okay? Sounds okay. You've already blessed me with some really wise conversations, and I want to say thank you for this amazing welcome that you've given me. And it's a real privilege to see so many of you here at this, the 75th anniversary of Windrush. And I was really privileged on Thursday to be there at the celebration where we heard from a former president of the Law Society, Stephanie, telling us about the barriers she faced and telling us a really inspirational story of success. But one of the things I really took from that is that people still face barriers. So you may know that I'm a minister in the Northern Ireland office, and there's a saying I want to share with you that I hear occasionally in Ireland, that the Irish never forget our shared history, but the British never remember. And yeah, I thought you'd like that. And that's something that we were talking about. I hope you won't mind, Mary, if I say that's something we were talking about on the way in. I think it's really important that we're reminded of our shared history. And I don't think there's been enough prominence given to this, the 75th anniversary of Windrush. You, the Windrush generation, descendants, have rebuilt and reshaped our countries in ways that we can be proud of, that I'm proud of. I'm proud that you're... I'm a bit worried the sound's not working. I'm proud that you're here in High Wycombe. I am. 13 years I've been the MP, and I think if I've made a mistake, it's I've been waiting to be invited. And I'm really grateful, Jinelle, that you invited me tonight, so thank you very much. I want to touch on one thing that I'm ashamed to touch on, so I'm not going to labour it. I'm really ashamed of the Windrush scandal. I want to say sorry. I know and want to acknowledge that the community has felt disrespected, and honestly, you've been right to feel disrespected. People were not treated correctly. I was ashamed and horrified by some of the cases we came across where we needed to help people. And I just want you to know I'm sorry about it. And this is about right and wrong. It's not about how people vote. So I don't want to labour the point, but I do want to say to you that I'm told that there are still people in this community who are worried about their status and don't want to come forward for help. Please be assured, I can feel my emotions welling up saying it. We're here for you, okay? We are here for you. I've got a team of people who want to help people get their status sorted out, because I, for one, am not willing to tolerate this country going forward with people not being certain of their worth and their value and their place here, because you are valuable and you are welcome. And anyone who's uncertain, I want to help you, okay? Well, we have. And you know what we have? I can't identify any individual cases, but if you've got any doubt about it, you test me, okay? So I want to say that, sorry, and I'm standing here knowing it would be a difficult conversation, but I want to know that I'm here to serve you. There is clearly more that we can do to celebrate the Windrush generation and celebrate the Caribbean community being here in Wycombe. I'm really proud that I encouraged Sade Addo to stand for us in Stoke Church, but it can't be right that we've only ever had one black councillor in High Wycombe. And Silva, I want to acknowledge you here and all the great work you've done, albeit for another party, but can we give Silva a round of applause? So I know there's lots to be done to make amends and to build up trust and to move forwards, but I want to assure you of my good faith in doing it, okay? However you vote, in the past or in the future, whoever's the Member of Parliament for Wycombe is here for you. And all the time it's me, I want you to know that I'm here for you. Prime Minister, welcome to High Wycombe. You are very welcome. I'm delighted to extend my welcome to you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, so we're going to have some opening remarks from Minister Councillor Jinelle Adams.
Prime Minister of St Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. the Honourable Ralph Gonsalves, Member of Parliament for Wycombe and Minister of State, Northern Ireland Office, the Honourable Steve Baker, staff of the High Commission, the Councillor, Caroline de Freitas-Saw and Mary Mark Peterkin, Chair of the National Council of SVG Associations UK, Miss Deiana Stapleton, Chairs of the various SVG Associations UK, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is my duty and pleasure to welcome all of you present and those viewing online via our social media platform to this evening's meeting with nationals. I recognize the presence of MP Steve Baker, and thank you so much for your very warm welcome to our Prime Minister. We have in our midst our honored guest and featured speaker, the Prime Minister of St Vincent and the Grenadines. Could I please ask you to put your hands together and join with me in welcoming the Prime Minister. Thank you so much. As you would have noticed, High Commissioner Senior Lewis is not with us this evening, and this is because he was called home to St Vincent to attend ministerial consultations for the overseas missions and consulates, but sends his regards. I am pretty sure that he is following this meeting online. As the chair said, I'm Jinelle, I'm the Minister Councillor, and in the absence of High Commissioner, I'm the Charge d'Affaires at the High Commission. And with me this evening, as I mentioned earlier, some members of staff, I have the councillor, if you could just indicate by waving, Ms. Caroline de Freitas-Saw, that deals with passport applications and other consular matters. I have Bryant Lewis, our accounting officer. I don't think they saw you, Brian. I have as well the High Commissioner's Secretary, Ms. Mary Mark Peterkin. and Mr. Gupta, the protocol officer. Gupta, if you could wave so that, thank you so much. The arrival of the Prime Minister and the convening of this meeting could not have happened at a better time, as we have recently celebrated Windrush Day on the 22nd of June, marking the 75th anniversary of the arrival of HMT Empire Windrush to the United Kingdom. As I look around the room, I see many persons who are of the Windrush generation. This meeting would not be happening if you did not accept the invitation to come to this country to help rebuild the United Kingdom following World War I. Had you not come to this country, it is likely that we would not have any nationals here to convene a meeting of this nature. You were invited, you came, you worked, you settled, and paved the way for the thousands that came after you. You contributed and continue to contribute not only to the United Kingdom, but to your home country, St Vincent and the Grenadines. Over the past 5 years or so, our beautiful Vinci land has weathered challenges of various proportions, ranging from a dengue fever outbreak to COVID-19, the eruption of the La Soufrière volcano, and most recently, the passing of Tropical Storm Berthe. We thank God for his loving kindness and tender mercies to have kept us as a people and nation throughout all these challenges. You, the nationals in the UK diaspora, stood unwavering, supporting, contributing to the government and people of St Vincent and the Grenadines in a time of need. Aside from this, you, the nationals and friends of St Vincent and the Grenadines, have supported the High Commission's disaster recovery efforts in the aftermath of disasters in St Vincent and the Grenadines. Thus, I wish to take this opportunity on my own behalf and on behalf of the government and people of St Vincent and the Grenadines, on behalf of High Commissioner Senior Lewis and the staff of the High Commission, to express sincerest thanks and appreciation to you for your continuous support. As I close, let me take this opportunity to extend an invitation to everyone to attend and support the High Commission's joint T20 charity cricket match, scheduled to take place on August the 20th at the Atrium Club in Reading. Thank you so much for attending this meeting, and do enjoy the remainder of this evening's proceedings. I now hand you back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Jinelle. Ooh, yes. Ooh. Okay, let's stand back a bit. So, thank you, Jinelle. So that cricket game was a major success. If you remember, we had 2,000 people that came down to High Wycombe. We lost, but this time we're going to win, okay? We're going to win. We're going to win. Okay, so I'm going to invite Deiana Stapleton. She's the chair of the National Council of St Vincent and Grenadines.
Thank you, Chair. Right. Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Dr. Ralph E. Gonsalves, Minister Councillor Jinelle Adams, staff of the SVG High Commission London, committee members of the National Council, members of the National Council and friends, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Deiana Stapleton. I'm chairperson of the National Council of St Vincent and the Grenadines Associations, UK. And it is my pleasure, on behalf of the Council, to welcome you all here this evening. Prime Minister Gonsalves, I take this opportunity to thank you for taking the time to address our nationals and friends on matters of interest relating to our beautiful homeland, sweet SVG. Your recent trip to Ghana is an important one for the cooperation of our people of African descent and the unification of our global diaspora as we forge ahead to create ways to uplift and further develop the people of our regions and ensure the sustainability of our islands' economics. With limited resources, Dr. Gonsalves, you and your team have endeavored to march towards putting SVG high amongst other Caribbean nations and on the world stage. And it was so refreshing to hear Prime Minister Mia Mottley refer to our blessed St Vincent, our homeland, as God's place. We hope these positive actions and proclamations will continue to bring thousands of visitors, including our fellow Vincentians and our British and European neighbors, to our shores. Dr. Gonsalves, you've always pressed the importance of unity. You once said that behind every leader, there is a great team. I am in total agreement of these words, and has worked diligently to achieve this with resounding success over the last 2 years, not only here in the UK, but internationally. I would like to take a minute, sir, in your presence to quickly acknowledge a few members of what I call Team Dynamic. First of all, I express sincere gratitude to our loved and respected High Commissioner, His Excellency Senior Lewis, and his team from the High Commission in London. To the committee members of the National Council, I'm not too sure how many of you are here, because I know it was short notice, but if you're here, can you, the committee members, can you stand so that Dr. Gonsalves can just glimpse and see who you all are? I can see lads, I can see Catherine, Brian's behind me. Anyone else here? Miss Lily. Thank you very much. Okay. I would also like to thank a group of people who has been the strength of the National Council, supporting whenever I call upon them. Okay, so I will start with Kim and Vanessa from the ladies of the London SVG Association, Chris Kelly from Waypoint Enterprising, Aaron Dixon, Gideon Henry, Big Mac McLean, DJ Chokti, sorry, I'll be finished in a minute, Dr. Freeze, Constance Patrick, Alexis Kerr, Cecil Brown, Julia Davidson, Kenny McDonough, Ken Weezy Wiseman, Rosemary Artman, Carlos DeSantos, Jeffrey Bonesy Rogers, Fillmore Miller, Ricardo Howell, David De Silva, Melissa Lachman, Dr. Diane Regisford, and Tessa Mason. Abroad, we have Suzette Small Weeks in Canada, Cheryl Ann Mason, New York, Kenley Shortmus John, Baltimore. On the ground in SVG, we have Josette Layton, Zona Goodin, assisted by Honorable Rennie Batiste. These nationals, Dr. Gonsalves, sir, I know as chair of the National Council, I can call upon them day or night, no matter what time, to rally the troops should the government of St. Vincent and its people needs us. I trust that Almighty God continues to bless you and the government and guide you as we continue to develop our blessed homeland, sweet St. Vincent and the Grenadines. That sounds so sweet when you say it, doesn't it? Come on, say it with me. Sweet St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Finally, I wish to extend a big thank you to the staff of the SVG High Commission, London. Finally, I wish to extend a big thank you to the staff of the SVG High Commission London and to Brian Lewis, Chair of WIMCO, and his team for organizing and hosting this evening's event. May we all have an informative and engaging evening. Thank you all very much. I love you all.
Thank you, Deiana. Okay, just to give you some context about what the National Council does. So we've got Derby, Oxford, Luton, High Wycombe, Southampton, London, and who's missing? So we all meet, Reading. So we all meet on a monthly basis. So when there was the hurricane recently, we pulled our resources together We've sent how many barrels over? Containers. Lots of containers. So we're Vincies all over the UK, but we all come together and we have one voice. Okay, so Deiana's leading that. Okay, so without further ado, it's time, as they say. It's time. So can I introduce the Prime Minister? Give him a warm welcome from High Wycombe.
Mr. Chairman, our dear leader of the council, the National Council, Deiana Stapleton, and of course at the head table to Jinelle, who is substituting here today for Senior Lewis, who is at home. We're having our annual consultation with the diplomats from overseas on Monday and Tuesday, well, for the week really. Not only from the United Kingdom, but from all over the world. And of course, I have to give a special recognition. You have come to meet me in my territory here in St Vincent and the Grenadines. But this is, although this is High Wycombe, you had me at Parliament at your office a few years ago, and I was very grateful. And though you welcome me here, I'm very happy to welcome you among my fellow Vincentians. I hope that the words which you express here today can be made manifest in appropriate public policy, because it doesn't often happen. I know it doesn't, it's not only you alone, but a lot of other people. And of course, I'm happy to see all my brothers and sisters, my fellow Vincentians, whom I love dearly, and to whom I've dedicated my life. I've been, who said rubbish? I've been a political activist for 55 years. I'm now the longest serving parliamentarian currently in Parliament, and I'm the longest serving Prime Minister, not only in St Vincent and the Grenadines, but continuously in the Caribbean and in other places. And my dedication, my life's work is there for everyone to see. And I have come here to High Wycombe after a journey which took me to Accra, Ghana, and to Paris. And I'm passing through on my way home. And I indicated to the High Commission's office that I would like to have a gathering, a meeting with Vincentians, and they chose to have it here in High Wycombe. And I'm very happy to see so many of you have turned out so that we can have a conversation as to what is taking place in St Vincent and the Grenadines. You want to come and speak? Do you wish to come and speak? Yes, yes, but really, you disrespected everybody here by sitting down. By sitting down and not standing up for the national anthem. I made a mental note of that. Occasionally you find one or two among us who disrespect our nation. And really, that's not what we are about. I want to begin our discussion by giving a context as to our circumstances and what are the things which we are doing in trying to improve the lives and living and production in our country. As you and I know, we are a small country with limited material resources, and we have a small population. We are 150 square miles, though our seascape is some 11,000 square miles. And incidentally, if you take our seascape, we are about the size of Rwanda, which is very much in the news for some particular reasons. But we have arrived at the position
Can we all put our mobiles on silence, please? Can we just take a second now to put your mobiles on silent, please? Breaking news coming again. Okay, have we all done it? Okay, sorry about that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The very small size of our country, in every material particular, creates for us certain challenges and limitations. But our very terrain and our seas and our people affords us immense possibilities because we do have strengths. And we have had, in the current circumstances, how we can make those strengths and possibilities work for us, to uplift our country, our people, and to see to what extent we can limit or minimize the extent of our limitations and weaknesses, or to have those limitations and weaknesses metamorphose into strengths and possibilities. We have a particular history, and through the fever of history, we have, in relation to what I'm going to speak about, certain incidents and processes of ennoblement, but others which have caused historical legacies of underdevelopment. And some of those historical legacies of underdevelopment have been brought about by colonialism, by native genocide committed against our people by the colonialists, by the enslavement of African bodies, we are all time. Only the future is ours to desecrate. The present is the past, and the past, our fathers' mischiefs. So, in an avoidance of the desecration of our future, what do we have to do? One of our poets from St Vincent and the Grenadines, Sheikh tells us, we have to speak to our grandparents and our parents, and to our daughters and our sons. And we have to speak in a language which is our own, and to look at the world through the prism of our own eyes and in our own interests. But that fever of history has made us compromises. But that doesn't mean we have to be compromising on what we stand for and what we seek to achieve. And what is the objective in talking to our grandparents, our parents, and to our sons and daughters through this fever of history which has created us as compromises? Out of all this, we must make a whole daughter and a whole son out of the compromise which we are, which we have become. St Vincent and the Grenadines was remade by Europe. And in the process of the remaking, Europe itself was remade. But yet, Europe does not quite yet have the consciousness that it has been remade. And that is why I was very careful in my listening to our dear friend, the Member of Parliament for High Wycombe. The quip he made about Ireland, that the Irish remember the history and the British forget it. Well, we must have memory. We all must have memory. And in this period of Windrush, the commemoration, the descendants of Windrush, the Windrush generation, the descendants, have been made compromises. And so too, those who are also engaged in the process, the British themselves. And through this fever of history, biology has helped. Because after all, we are plants and not animals. And you just watch the streets of London or High Wycombe, and you see how, though we have been remade, the host country has also been remade. And what we have to do in England, in Europe, and in Africa, and in the Caribbean, and St Vincent and the Grenadines, metaphorically, to make a whole daughter and a whole son out of the compromises which the fever of history has made us. When the British arrived in St Vincent and the Grenadines, and I'm using the name which we took to ourselves at independence, because there was a reclamation of independence in 1979, because we were independent before the British arrived and they established colonialism. Now, in the recounting of this history and the influences of that to the present, I want to make it plain. None of us must have any dislike or hatred for the British. But we have to have an honest conversation about the history. And that honest conversation sometimes can be painful all around. And what I'm going to say, which would be of relevance today, is that honest conversation, the question must come. And we must demand, as indeed my country demands, and as CARICOM, the Caribbean Community demands, that there has to be a recompense for reparations for native genocide and the enslavement of African bodies. Now, I have been in the forefront of that particular struggle, and I will continue. And those, if in the process we do not achieve all that we should achieve, there are others where we are seeking to make our whole son and our whole daughter. They will stand upon those of us who have gone before. But in making this demand, I'm not talking about a confrontation. I'm talking about a mature conversation. Because too often, we involve ourselves in infantile and puerile reactions when we have come of age, that we can act maturely. And as the book of Proverbs advises, to lend a listening ear to everyone and apply our heart to wisdom. In 1763, Britain assumed suzerainty of St Vincent and the Grenadines by the Treaty of Paris. The British and the French carved up the possessions in the Eastern Caribbean. And St Vincent and the Grenadines was allocated to Britain. Britain came. Oh, they had been there sometime before, episodically. But this time they were coming for real. And when they came with weapons, with administrators, and they came with the Church of England. Again, I'm not saying anything against the Church of England, I'm just recording facts. They decided to conquer and settle. 1763. When they arrived, whom did they meet? They met a nation of Kalinagos and Garifuna. Who were these people? Our forebears. The Kalinago, called in the literature from Europe, called the Yellow Caribs. These are people, or forebears, who came from the Orinoco a few thousand years before, came up to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But there were also Africans and people of African descent, but before slavery. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is a unique place in the Caribbean, you know. It is the period with the shortest, is the country with the shortest period of slavery, lasting between 1764 and 1838. Barbados was a slave colony since 1630. Antigua, St. Kitts, since the 1620s, 1630s. Jamaica, 1655. And you may be asking the question, why nobody ever told us in the history that African people and people of African descent were in St. Vincent and the Grenadines before Britain established colonialism? Where did these Africans come from? 3 sources. First, runaway enslaved persons from Barbados. Barbados, as you know, is flat, almost like a pancake. It didn't have any mountain to hide. So if you ain't like slavery and you're running away, it's easier to go on a canoe and go to St. Vincent than to hide in the bush, because there's no bush for you to hide there. And I'm doing this for the benefit of my brother Steve, who needs to understand his constituents. So it's a history lesson, I know, for you, but also for my brother, for him to understand, and that the words that he has spoken, they link with what I'm saying, must in his heart be a redemption song. So that what he has apologized for, and I take that apology heartfelt, we then must go beyond apology, not just to deal with individual cases of wrongdoing, but to deal with certain collective issues where historical wrongs must be righted. Now, so the first set, there were Africans who came, who ran away from Barbados. Well, if you run away from slavery and you go somewhere else where you don't have any slavery. There was no slavery in St. Vincent before the British arrived, you know. I want you to understand that. We were a free people. That's the first group. Then there was a slave ship which sank. There was a shipwreck. And the slaves, most of them who didn't go to their watery graves, came to St. Vincent. They swam there. And then there was a third group who were brought by some French settlers on the western side of the island to plant pimento and other spices and some tobacco. And they brought with them some enslaved African bodies. But these enslaved African bodies came not in a slave society, because the Kalinago and the Garifuna are the offspring of the mating between the Africans and the Kalinago. So this small group of enslaved African bodies which the French brought they were not in a society of slavery. There was no slave society. No. By the time the British arrived in 1763, the Garifuna people, the population had expanded, because as I said earlier, through the whole period, biology has played an important part. We are all animals, we are not plants. And it may come as a surprise to many people. We do mate, and animals, human beings, we do have children. And it continues. You know, can't wipe them out. And the British made a fundamental mistake in 1764. They said that all the land in St Vincent and the Grenadines belonged to them. Well, you come from London, High Wycombe, Manchester, and Reading. Well, the land there belonged to you, but not in St Vincent. They come take the land for. So naturally we fight. And you can check the records in the Parliament in England. There were always complaints. And the intellectual class couldn't understand how some half-naked savages, the way they referred to the people, how could they hold the mighty British army at bay from 1764 until 1795, when they ambushed and killed Chatouillet, the Right Excellent Joseph Chatouillet, first and only national hero of St Vincent and the Grenadines, whom we revere, and whom I had something to do to make him a national hero in 2002, pass a law in relation to it. Man cannot live by bread alone. And you notice I use the formulation frequently, enslaved African bodies. You could get the body, but you know what's going on inside of the mind. And right now, this is something which I'm urging the Europeans, British, and everybody to know. They see you walking down the street, you're doing a lot of work, you're doing your jobs and so on and so forth. And they may make certain assumptions about you, but they don't quite know what's going on in your mind. And you have to get into it. And we have to work together, because we are all time. Only the future is ours to desecrate. And to avoid the desecration of the future, we got to talk to one another, the preceding generations, the current ones, and we have to talk to our daughter, and we have to talk to our son. To make a whole daughter and a whole son. By the way, let me just come forward a little bit here. You notice how the population in the world is becoming brown? And you notice Eurocentric notions of beauty existed? Now, most of the Miss World competition is won by persons who are African, of African descent, Caribbean people, Indians, South Americans of mixed races. Huh? There are some people in the United States want to make America white again. It was never white. It was never white. And there are people who are following MAGA, Make America Great Again. I call it Make America White Again. They're looking forward to the past, but a past which never was. And anybody who is looking forward to the past, which never was, it means that their future is behind them. No. There were intermittent peace treaties which were broken. And the British repeatedly broke them until 1795. Chatouillet, he was ambushed and killed at Dorsetshire Hill, March 14, 1795. Then the British carried out large-scale genocide against our people. And then they rounded up nearly 5,000, put them on Baliso, an inhospitable island with no water, only snake and guana survived it. Within 6 months, half of them were dead. And the other half were exiled in the Bay of Honduras on Rotten Island. And from there, those sturdy souls, mainly Garifuna, but also some Kalinago. They went to Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. They make pilgrimages to St. Vincent and the Grenadines annually. And when they reach St. Vincent and the Grenadines, they kiss the ground, because that is holy territory. You remain. That's the original name, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And that's why it pains me to see a man who sit down and don't stand up for the national anthem. No. Several matters through British colonialism, we have to say that a contribution was made. Well, we have the English language. We have the common law. And some notions of democracy evolved. But you didn't have to kill out half of the people and to enslave others. Take all the land and put the Garifuna and the Kalinago on 238 acres of the most inhospitable territory in the northeast. Huh? You didn't have to do all of that just to give us the English language, the common law, and some notions of democracy. So I'm not drawing up a balance sheet, of assets and liabilities. I'm not doing that. Because to do that would be to reduce a complex process to a mere accounting one. And this is not a simple accounting problem. That's why we have a 10-point plan for reparations, for reparative justice. And if you want to read about it, you can read several books. But since I'm talking, go on Amazon, and there's a book there written by Ralph called Caribbean Reparatory Justice. You can read about it there. But you can read other books too. Hilary Beckles, Professor Beckles, and the like. Steve, you notice I just said about historical legacies of underdevelopment. When the British stopped the control of St. Vincent and Grenadines in 1969, because they had external affairs and defense, but internal affairs came to an end in their control over it in 1969. When I went to school, to the grammar school, in 1959 January, only 30 of us got into school. 30 boys. The school had 250 or thereabouts. A board school. In 200 years of colonialism, Britain established 2 secondary schools. The girls' high school and the boys' grammar school. One for boys and one for girls. One for each 100 years of colonialism. That is a legacy, a historical legacy of neglect, which made it difficult for me, my government, in carrying out the education revolution which we launched in 2001 when we came to office 22 years ago and counting. Let's take native genocide. People, the indigenous people, were put across the dry river. Steve, is an expanse of territory, the dry river, 3 football fields. The dry river, but when rain come down a mountain, you don't know what happened. You get washway. Vehicle get washway because they got to drive on the floor. I had to build a bridge there. There was no secondary school up there. I had to build one. There was no doctor up there. I had to carry one. In Sandy Bay. There was no ambulance. I had to carry one. You know, I'm talking to you about the neglect of the historical legacy of underdevelopment occasioned by native genocide. And I'm urging you, and the same thing I can go through the communities to show the impact of slavery in our societies. Meanwhile, of course, it's established by Eric Williams and other historians, Capitalism and Slavery, that the proceeds from the Caribbean and from the Middle Passage, they helped to build. They were not the only ones. Helped to build the Industrial Revolution and the wealth in the in Britain. If you don't believe me, read the speech online of the former Archbishop of Canterbury, Dr. Rowan Williams, on the 200th anniversary of the abolition of the slave trade. And what I'm calling here for is what he called for, there. Man of God. Morning by morning, new mercies we see. All that we need, thy hand has provided. Great is thy faithfulness. Oh. Well, slavery came to an end in 1838. I want to make this point. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is the only place anywhere at all in the world, certainly in the Western world, only place where certain persons of African descent, that is to say the Garifuna, were never slaves and never allowed themselves to be slaves. And St. Vincent and the Grenadines is also unique in that it is the last place in the hemisphere that the indigenous people fought colonialism. So when some people don't understand sacrifice and they're involved with a lot of little individual things, I got individual problems too, All of we got individual problems. But I know one thing. Unless we are in solidarity with one another, we ain't going to make any progress. That's why you have to support my brother's organization, my sister's organization, and that all of us, we are on the dangerous road to Jericho. And every one of us is our neighbor. The Levite may go by. The priest may go by. The lawyer may go by. But as good Samaritans, we have to stop. Clean the wound of he who has been robbed. Bandage up the wound and take that person to the inn so that they could have food and shelter on this dangerous road to Jericho. For those who say, no, my body, my choice. Well, if you live in a society by yourself, but you live in communion with other people. And that's why I tell you, despite the recounting of the history, you notice, I'm very calm on it. And there must be no hatred. There must be no bitterness. There must be maturity. You must listen. Have an attentive ear. Be in solidarity. Apply our heart to wisdom to make sure that at the end of the day, we're making a whole daughter and a whole son out of the compromise, which is the fever of history that made us. No. And then the remaking came further with the introduction of indentured servants after slavery in 1845, between 1845 and 1850, some 2,200 persons of Portuguese origin were taken from Madeira. They wanted more workers. That's how my foreparents came. And then, when they needed more labor, if it was cheaper for them to get it from the moon, they would have go there. But the next cheap place was to go to India. That's when 2,600 of our Indian brothers and sisters were brought to St Vincent and Grenadines as indentured servants. And through this fever of history, we have moved from a situation where each ethnic, cultural, and racial section had its own distinct, separate arrangements to one where there has been a creolization in our society, where we have become homogeneous around a core of tried and tested values. And from a situation where there was a culturally plural society in the sense that each ethnic, racial, cultural section had its own distinct, relatively distinct pattern of sociocultural integration, to one now to a full integrative process. And I always say that our Caribbean civilization and its magnificent component, that of St. Vincent and Grenadines, we are metaphorically like a symphony. We are the songs of the indigenous people, the Kalinago and the Garifuna. We are the rhythm of Africa. We are the melody of Europe. Europe is there. We are the chords of Asia from India, and we are the homegrown lyrics of the Caribbean in a geographic seascape and landscape of our own. We have learned from others. We have adapted and we have adopted. And this metaphoric symphony, like all symphonies, from time to time we have dissonances. But how do we deal with these dissonances? Culturally, we have evolved from the genius of our people, cultural forms and modes of behavior to deal with those dissonances. And where those are not sufficient, we go through formal institutions, the parliament, the law courts, etc., etc. That is what brought us as this magnificent component of our Caribbean civilization, which is unique, distinct, has historical legitimacy and authenticity, and has a trajectory for a further ennoblement and upliftment, which is what we are about, not to desecrate our future. I think it's important, given the way the discussion started. I didn't intend this part to be part of my speech today. But it having been raised, I had to provide context and meaning. And we have an important member of parliament, an important official in the British government, I wanted him to hear that we have approached these questions never in anger. And in my case, I approached them with a patience and a calm. Sun brightens stone and all the river burns. Doesn't mean that because I have a patience and a calm that I don't need urgency. And for those of us who ever bathed in Connery River, like me, you would know when you go there, you see the stones. The stones are all black of volcanic origin, but that part which is submerged, that part which is in the water, is darker, and that above is brighter. Over the years, the sun brightens stone. But we can't desecrate the future. And the heating of the water, the sun on it, and all the river burns. Nowhere else must burn. We have to work honestly and in mature conversations and with clear programs as to how we're going to make humanity and every part of humanity better. Recently, we have been through some challenges. So there's historical legacy, and you see the pain and suffering, but at the same time, the joys and triumphs. The possibilities and the limitations, the strengths and the weaknesses. And what is the role of leadership in all of this? I know some of you would be saying there in your head. Some may be saying, Ralph is giving an inspiring talk today. If a leader inspires, it's a good thing. But it's the easiest thing to do. Because inspiration involves putting in what a good and proper leader is required to do. In fact, the highest quality of leadership is not simply to put in, but to draw out, and to draw out from you who are being led, wherever you are, to draw out what is good in you, because there's good in you, what is noble in you, what is uplifting in you, and to draw out goodness, nobility, and uplifting qualities, oftentimes which you may not as know that you possess. That is to be drawn out. And that is what we have to tell our young people and our children. And when they go in this way and that way, remember, a patience and a calm, sun brightens stone, and all the river burns. Now, we had COVID. We had 21 volcanic eruptions. We had Hurricane Elsa, global turmoil, including Ukraine. By the way, you notice how Ukraine is being covered. If that was taking place in Africa, it would have been said that two tribes, two rival tribes, or clans in the tribe. Well, these are two European tribes, Slavic in origin. In fact, they're different clans. When you begin to think of it in particular ways, you get a different perspective. But what we know, that war is affecting us with prices, supply chain challenges, affecting our economies. We decided in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, when we were in the valley, because of COVID and the volcanic eruptions, we had to hold things together and be planning to come out of the valley and go to higher heights. Last year, 2022, St. Vincent and the Grenadines had the highest growth rate, 6%, in the Caribbean, save and except Guyana. And as you know, Guyana got plenty of oil money now. This year, the IMF has projected that we will have 6.2% growth. And next year, there's a targeted number of at least 5%. This year also, Guyana is the only one with oil money ahead of us. Today, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we have more people working in our country than at any time in its history. And I know you may say, Ralph, well, the population in 2001 when you came to office was less than what it is now. Well, the truth is this. The population was only about 2,000 less because we're not having enough children. No, we're not having enough children. The birth rate is falling. The birth rate is falling. And we are living longer because of all the improvements which have taken place, included in medicine. My mommy had 10 children. You think any woman in St. Vincent today going to have 10 children? So no, I'm telling you factually what it is. So you may not know this. The fastest growing segment of the population in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is the over 65s by 1/3. Oh, the young population below 30 is still the largest segment, but it is growing at a much slower rate than the old population. That's a problem they have in the United Kingdom too. So that means that more you who work in, strong young man, more older people relying on you than your father. That's a fact. Which is creating all kinds of problems. Social security, citizen security. Look, why do you think the British want more labor to come in? They don't have enough people to do things what they have to do. And their problem is this. How are you, for the economy and for the social services, the health sector, and to take care of old people, to bring in more people? Yet, politically, you have some people who are looking forward to the past, which never was, telling the politicians don't bring in anybody else. But the way this world is going, and you wouldn't know about it, but Ans will bring in the news, give me when I gone. Ans will bring it, give me. I think my brother Steve wants to know what I mean. Ans will bring it, give me. when I'm dead, when they ants, they'll bring the news. They go bring the news. What people are fighting against, they'll bring the news that they have to stop fighting against it, because the real world. And by the way, and I'm coming back to St Vincent and Grenadines, the country with the most young people in the world, the nation, the continent is Africa. The under 30 in Africa is half the population. And they're traveling. And when they're younger, animals reproduce more when they're younger rather than when they're older. When they're, in the case of human beings, 18 and 19 up to your 30, 35 or thereabouts. I know medical science could make you 65 have a child, but and people migrate. And that's why you're going to have increasingly the browning of the population. India is 1.4 billion too. Listen to me, you know. The golden billion, the countries with the golden billion today, which dominated the world from 1800 to now. That is to say, America, Canada, Britain, and the 27 countries of the European Union, those 30. They are just about 1 billion people, you know. But there are 8 billion people in the world. Africa is 1.4 billion. The Caribbean and Latin America is 650 million. India is 1.4 billion. China is 1.4 billion. The 10 nations in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations is about 500 million, of which the largest Muslim country in the world, Indonesia, is 300 million approximately. Then you have the Middle East, with Saudi Arabia being the jefe in that region. Then you have Iran, about 90 million people, the former Persian Empire. You meet Iran in the book of Daniel. That's a country of real significance, you know. You have to know the history of the world. And then there's Russia, the largest landmass of a country, 150 million people, but they have a lot of nuclear weapons. So there's 7/8 of the world outside of what you may call the golden billion. The golden billion, those countries are critical to the world, vital. But that dominance, while it is still there, is slipping relative to other countries. And there are changes. The times they are changing. I talk like this on my platform at home, you know, because I have the people. 110,000 people has to interact with the rest of the 8 billion people in the world. Unless we do, we are doomed to failure. That's why you have some with the village mentality and going anyway. Where Ralph going? In the case of Africa, where I just went there in Ghana, I went for the 30th anniversary of the Africa Export-Import Bank. It may come as a surprise to people that that bank, which is headquartered in Egypt, has assets of $32 billion US. 11 of us in the Caribbean thus far have signed on. We have to move from shared experiences to shared expressions with an institutional base. If we just talk about our shared experiences, but don't say how we must take those shared experiences and express them institutionally, including in financial institutions. We're not going anywhere. Marcus Garvey taught us that very early, you know. It's taken us 100 years to learn it. We had hard, you know. Taking us 100 years to learn it. And I went to Paris. I'm the president pro tempore, St Vincent and Grenadines, of CELAC. The Community of States of Latin America and the Caribbean is the country, the smallest country ever, and the only CARICOM country ever to hold the pro tempore presidency. We're having a summit on this between CELAC and the European Union on the 17th and the 18th in Brussels. St Vincent and Grenadines is leading the discussion on behalf of 650 million people. You see where the world going? You have to have a large conception. But within that, you still have to be grounded. And I will explain why. You know, hurricane, tropical storm Brett, I shared this with a friend of mine. Tropical storm Brett just passed and hit St. Vincent in my village. Home village, Connery, is one of those badly affected. Well, everybody in St. Vincent and Grenadines has my cell phone number. So this is one of my constituents. I don't know if they do this to you, Steve. Here it is. She called me earlier today. She texted me earlier today. Good morning, PM. How are you this morning? Yesterday, housing, Bindong village side. Housing meaning the Ministry of Housing. They write down name, then I come up with side. So she's making a direct complaint to me. So I called her and said to her, well, I'm in London. You know I'm in London. You text me there. Why didn't you go down the side where the housing was and tell them that they should come up your side? She got in touch with me rather than go to people. Then I called her and tell her, well, today look out, because I got in touch with the National Emergency Management Organization, and they were sending out a team today. But when I called her, I didn't get her. I was on my way here. So she said here, I'm sorry to miss call. My battery been die. We just now get back current. So I don't want you to think this is a man who is grounded there. So while I'm here dealing with you with this and trying to provide some context, I have to deal with this. No. By the way, between 3:15, 3:30 every morning and 9 o'clock, I have between 150 and 200 messages. And this is SMS. If it were WhatsApp, it would be more. Because you have to have a little credit on your phone to the SMS. So, what are some of the big projects we are doing right now? And I'll do a summary. The biggest one is the port project. For the benefit of Steve, I will put it in American dollars and translate it roughly into Eastern Caribbean dollars. It's about between 260 to 275 million US dollars, $650 million there or thereabouts, EC. I have the funding for it already. I want to thank the British government for making a grant contribution of $36 million US to that project. And to tell you how we do things, I'll tell you how we do things. We started the airport in 2008, August, actual construction, earth movements. From that moment on, from the time we started, I began to think about the next huge strategic project. Because what I'm seeking to do, what our government is seeking to do, is to build a modern, competitive, many-sided, post-colonial economy, which is at once local, national, regional, and global. And each of those words is pregnant with real meaning. So you can't have a modern, post-colonial, competitive, many-sided economy unless you have an international airport and a modern port. And the modern port is ongoing. We're going to finish it in June 2025. You know when I got that money? When Dave Cameron established the Caribbean Infrastructure Fund. And we put that money aside in the Caribbean Development Bank. Despite all the challenges with COVID and so forth, I didn't touch it. We're now touching it. And when we're touching it, my friend Dave Cameron is not there. Then Theresa May came and went. All good people. I'm just saying to show you how we do our work. I put that aside. You have to learn from the women. How many times you're bawling, you the man, them bawling. You ain't got money. You're wondering a bill come, you want it. You see, a woman brings she kerchief. And it tie up. And when the husband moaning, she said, well, I just keep something out of it to give me. Eh? You have to have something in the kerchief. You got to listen to your parents and your grandparents. But put the money aside. So Theresa May came and went. Then after Theresa, there was Boris. Then there's Liz, and then Richie. You see the number of prime ministers who came and went, but I made sure the money stay for the port. When we finish the port, I'm telling you the plan what we're doing. That's the western end of the city, and we bought some lands. The government has some lands there. We're developing the western end of the city. In the center, I have $5 million US from the Alba Bank. You notice I mentioned Britain and I now gone Venezuela. St Vincent and Grenadines, we are friends of all and we strive for a better world. Don't because you don't like Venezuela, you think that I ain't going to do anything with Venezuela. That's your business. That's your business. On the eastern end of the city, where the old port is, it's over 60 years old. You have to patch it up. As the old people in the villages say, you got to patch it up like so forth. I want that area to be transformed. And I'm working with two sets of investors. And I want local people to be involved, regional people, but two sets of external investors. I want to do a cruise ship berth there. Another one, shops, health and wellness, touristic shops, the boardwalk, and a big cultural Center. We've done a preliminary study. Cane Garden Point, you see Cane Garden Point is out there. It's just about 300 meters. We'll do a tunnel under that, going into what is going to be the new city, the modern city at Arnesville, former E.T. Joshua Airport. In November, the Anchor Project is going to be started. The Anchor Project is a 220 million acute referral hospital, 220 million EC. Well, maybe more like 250 million EC, close to 100 million US. I have the money from the World Bank and from the OPEC Fund for International Development. At the moment, we intend to remake the city in a very beautiful way. And in doing it, not chinks in, doing it proper and sophisticated and modern and linked to lifting our lives, our livelihoods, and our production. We have a project going on now, over 50 million Eastern Caribbean dollars for, we're doing over 9 schools. This is beyond the normal repair program. We're doing a number of health centers and clinics. In fact, those of you from Georgetown, we have built a health complex of over $100 million in health infrastructure. The modern medical and diagnostic center. You know, you can go there and get a colonoscopy for $40 EC. People leave Barbados and come there to do it. We have all the modern diagnostic tools there. And we have just, on the 29th, will be 5 years since we built the modern medical and diagnostic center. And we have installed right now the first MRI facility in Georgetown. We are going to formally open it on Thursday, in the 5th anniversary. And then we're going to have another 3 weeks of testing certain things before it's open to the public. Incidentally, we have up there state dialysis facilities. And get this, we have 50 persons on dialysis there. Since September, we took the decision as a government that all hemodialysis in the state facilities would be free. For the consumables alone, for the dialysis, for each patient, it costs 50,000 EC dollars, nearly 20,000 US dollars. I'm not talking about for the medical attention from the doctors or the nurses or the lights or the repair. I'm talking the recurrent expenditure for the consumables to do the dialysis for each of these patients 2-3 times a week. The private sector cost is at least $500 per treatment, 500 EC dollars. There are 50 patients there undergoing hemodialysis. For the consumables alone, that's $2.5 million. You hear me? The case came where somebody couldn't pay any money at all. I said, we can't allow a person to die. You have to do it free. And I say, if you do it free for one, you got to do it free for everybody. And that is how it was done. We did it free for everybody. We have there a smart hospital. The whole hospital has been transformed into a smart hospital. The old clinic has been transformed into a smart health center. And just below it, We have built out the Chili playing field. It's part of a whole wellness complex. Then below the Chili playing field is the Technical Institute. We have the best technical education anywhere in the OECS in the Eastern Caribbean. And the British have recognized that. That's why they have a £9 million project for technical education. They headquarter it in St Vincent to deal with the islands around St Vincent. And just below that technical center, technical institute, we just built a hard code for $1.2 million. And for those, and I see many persons here in Georgetown, as you go down to Bronxtown, and then you go to Caratal, for sea defenses and river defenses, to save the city, we have just spent $23 million, Eastern Caribbean, doing that. You'll see on Facebook that people saying how the sea defenses and the river defenses saved them at the time of this tropical storm. And next month, we are starting a $42 million project to save Sandy Bay. That is, Steve, that is the heartland of where the Garifuna are and the Kalinago. $42 million. Otherwise, the village will go. The sea is taking the land on the entire eastern side of the island, on the western too, but climate change, but global warming, rising sea levels, we contribute practically zero to that globally. But we're on the front lines. And you think anybody gave me money for that? I had to borrow that money to save it. You think this thing easy? Eh? So a man don't respect the country and sit down when the national anthem is played and think he believes he's just being mature. He's just being completely ignorant. But I love him. I love him. I love him. Then, from La Soufrière, we had to build and repair, as a consequence of La Soufrière, nearly 2,000 houses. We have done about 1,400 and something. This storm has affected those areas also, so I have to do more. By the way, I don't know how you do it in England when there's a storm or when there's a natural disaster. I build it and I give it the key. Free. Free. I don't want any payment from it. Where we're building the port, we moved 49 families from the port. They were in structures. I don't even want to call them houses, in structures. Valued in total $275,000. I built 49 1, 2, and 3 bedroom houses for them at a beautiful spot in Lomans, costing $4.8 million. Give them the key. In fact, even after I gave them the key, some of them came to me. Said, come here, the guy help me pay the electricity. I give you $150,000, $150,000, a $200,000 house, free. Still, you could help me a little bit with the electricity. Housing, health, education, I'm giving some highlights. We are building I've got the agreement already with the Saudi fund, Saudi Arabia. You notice, I deal with everybody. During the election campaign, in the United States. My brethren Joe Biden, the president of the great US of A, said that if he elected, he's going to make Saudi Arabia the pariah, political pariah. As soon as problems arose with the Russian pipeline, and for oil coming from Russia to Europe, where did he find himself? He found himself in Saudi Arabia talking oil. You want plenty more oil than they pumping? Yeah? So if you notice, I don't get involved in any internal affairs of any country. I don't get involved at all. Because I know the amount of hypocrisy which is involved. I don't get involved in the internal affairs in the United States, in Britain, and you stay out of my business too. We can talk and have a mature conversation on things on which we could agree, like climate change, and work together, like migration, and so on and so forth. It's the only, we are a small country, and I have to find space in this big, bad world. And I had to listen to my grandparents and my parents, and my daughter and my son, in order to make a whole daughter and a whole son out of the compromises which the fever of history has made us. Maturely. No. So we're going to build at Central, where the Central Ironwood factory is, a facility for nearly $8 million US, about $20 million EC, a cultural, artistic, educational and production center. We're doing satellite hubs in Peterborough and in Rose Hall. We are building out the infrastructure, strengthening with the internet backbone. Yeah, I don't know what happened here since 2010 in St Vincent, Grenadines. My government has given out laptops or other electronic devices on 3 separate occasions to primary, secondary, and post-secondary institutions. On three occasions. And now, for the 5th form and the first year in secondary in community college, we are giving out 3,200 Chromebooks. Those the experts would know what a Chromebook is. High quality stuff for these young people. When I tell you give, I mean give, you know. All I want you to just take care of it. That's all I want you to do, and learn. In September, I took on the portfolio of post-secondary and secondary education, post-secondary and tertiary education. We are spending as much money on post-secondary as the community college and university education. We are spending as much on it, on those 2 items, as we are spending on the police and as we are spending on the hospitals. And we are on target by 2030 to have on average 1 college or university graduate per household in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's the way. There are many things you may want to ask me about. And I've been talking a long time and you have questions to ask. I want to just say this. We have carried out an education revolution. And it continues. Because that is the base with all the infrastructure we're building and all the roads and bridges that we are building. And I could talk to you about those. We can't do it without our population being trained, young people. It's not a matter just of passion. It's one of commitment. If it were not for education, I wouldn't be where I am. And it has to be open for everybody. When I got to go to the grammar school, we had to write a competitive exam. About 250 boys took the exam. Only 30 could get in. Even going to write the exam was a problem for me because I didn't have a pair of shoes. I went to school in my village from age 5 to 12 barefooted. My mother went to town and buy a pair of shoes for me. Buy it as a half size too small. Measure me foot with a piece of string. Either my thought processes or the good Lord impelled me to take it off and take off my socks and write my exam barefooted like I've written exams all in my life before. And that made the difference. Otherwise, if I didn't take that chance, I would have been a farmer. That's what I would have been. Maybe I would have had a life of ease compared to the one I have now. But what it means is that every single person must be given an opportunity. And as with everything else, two roads diverge in the woods. And I shall be saying that ages and ages hence. Two roads diverge in the woods. And I chose the one least traveled by. And that has made all the difference. You must let it make the difference. Individually lift yourself up and work in solidarity. Have a patience and a calm. And if you're worried, I always find that when I read the Psalms or Ecclesiastes or Proverbs, it helps me to get a patience and a calm. Sun brightens stone, and all the river burns. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We're going to...
I want to say this. My last book is called A Time of Despair, Beyond COVID, Volcanic Eruptions, Hurricane Elsa, and Global Turmoil, Fresh Hope for St Vincent, Grenadines. It's on Amazon. I'm not making an advertisement for you to buy it on Amazon. So. That's not easy. If you get it, to read it, if you get it to read it, you could, you know, and I tell you this, in addition to all the work that I do, Steve, over the last 12 and a half years, 13 years, I've written 10 books. I have to write because the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines educated me, give me an opportunity to be their Prime Minister. I have a responsibility not only to do my best in my work, but to write down so that the young ones, even after I'm gone, they can talk to me and listen to them.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Truly inspirational and factually educational speak there. So a couple of takeaways. We were the last to be enslaved. I didn't know that. 1764, 150 years before many of the countries in the Caribbean. Didn't know that. Educational. And it just shows we are fighters. We're Vincies, we fight. And then we fight together. So it's a truly inspirational speech. So before we get into the questions and answers, so we've got two people going to have the microphones. Where's Stella? I think you're going to do one. We have two cars blocking in, so we can just... So we need these cars moved immediately, please. So it's registration AD19DHF. It's a black... Well, you know your car, so it's your car. Move it, please. And the next car, RK18FPE. Can you move your cars, please? We have people in the Badminton Centre stuck, and we need them to be, so they don't complain to the council. So can you move your cars? So two cars, two black cars, RK18FPE, AD19DHF. Can you please move your cars? Okay, so we've got the mics. Right. Can you get mic? So Jinelle is going to be the question and answers. So there's questions online as well. So if one goes over this side and one goes over the outside. Okay, Jinelle?
Thank you very much, Brian. Before the question and answer segment starts, Prime Minister would like to present MP Baker with a small gift.
I have two of my books here. The latest one for Steve, and another one too. It's called Our Caribbean Civilization and Its Political Prospects. So I hope. No. You are all ally in the cabinet. And, I wouldn't want to disappoint you. As you know, most of the persons here supposedly were guardians. I don't know what they do here, and I wouldn't get involved in that. But I just tell you, they support in St Vincent.
Now, I've got something for you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I was not expecting this gift, but I wasn't expecting the Prime Minister to give me these very generous gifts, and thank you very much. I enjoyed your speech immensely, and you've given me a great deal to reflect upon, and I appreciate that. It was educational, and I'm grateful. But I wasn't expecting these gifts, so I didn't bring anything particularly with me, but I always carry one of these. This is from a cathedral in Ireland, this coin, and on one side is a Celtic cross, which has particular meaning to me because as well as being Irish, it's Cornish, which is where I come from. And on the back, there's a little prayer, Irish blessing. I've got to try and read it now, and it's quite small. May your troubles be less, your blessings be more, and nothing but happiness come through your door, Mr. Prime Minister. So thank you very much.
And since I've given my friend Steve 2 books, in relation to this, what you've given, there's a book which I've written. It's on Amazon. It's called...
Hang on, I thought you said you were a socialist.
It's on Amazon. No, it's relevant to this. I wasn't going to ask you about the others. But I can bring one or send one for you. It's called The Diary of a Prime Minister, 10 Days Among Benedictine Monks. I went to live in a monastery for 10 days while I was Prime Minister. I don't know if a Prime Minister in Britain can do that, because I wanted seriously to examine myself to see if I could be a better person. Because we can always be better persons. Always. Always. Thank you very much.
Very good idea.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister and MP Baker. So we have come to the question and answer segment of this evening's proceedings. We will also be taking questions on our social media pages, Facebook and YouTube. So if you're watching us online, you can post your questions. If you are in the audience and you wish to ask a question, when you do, please just indicate your name and if you're based in High Wycombe or if you're based in other part of the UK. So let us start. See the lady in the red dress. Please stand. Thank you.
So the, oh gosh, goodness. Okay, so the British left two secondary schools. How many secondary schools do you have now, and what percentage of the population have the opportunity to attend a secondary school?
From 2005, we have universal access to secondary education. Up to 2001, only 4 out of every 10 12-year-olds were in secondary school. Well, actually, 3.9 of them, but since you can't have a 0.9 of a person, 4 persons, 4 out of every 10. Everybody now goes to secondary school, and if you don't have the means, you're supported in every material particular to go. In the period since I got in a 7-year period, I opened 9 secondary schools. There are now 26 secondary schools. Of course, there were more than 2 when I arrived, clearly, but I'm talking about existing ones like the grammar school and the high school. We extended them. We just finished a multi-million-dollar renovation of the grammar school. We are currently doing that for the girls' high school, being among the schools. So once you're 12 years old, you write now what is called the Caribbean Primary Exit Assessment, CPEA. It's a regionally administered examination through the Caribbean Examination Council, CXC, which does the CXC, the CSEC at what you call the O-levels, and the CAPE, Caribbean Advanced Primary, Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Exam. That is the equivalent of the A-levels. And we don't have a category called fail in St Vincent and the Grenadines. We don't say, if you don't reach the pass mark, we don't say you're failed. You're pass deferred. But everybody gets to go to secondary school, including those who are pass deferred, because we have remedial programs to get you up to speed as you get to enter the secondary school. That's the situation. Since September 2005, it took me 4 years. It took us 4 years to get all the teachers trained and all the like. And I'll tell you this, when we arrived in the primary school, there were only 4 teachers with university degrees. Now you have about 60-70% of the teachers with university degrees. It's a remarkable story. It's a complete revolution. Of course, you know, every time you're satisfied about something, that satisfaction itself creates dissatisfactions which you have to address. It's the nature of life and living. But I would say we're doing pretty well broadly in the field of education, and there are lots of things which we have in train currently and prospectively to further advance the education revolution. Thank you.
Next question, please. The lady in the orange. Go ahead.
Hello. Good evening, Prime Minister, and everyone here. I would just like to say my parents came from St Vincent in the 60s. My mum came from Bottom Kittills. My dad from Stubbs.
What's the family name on both sides?
My dad is a Jocelyn from Stubbs. My mum is a King from Bottom Kittills.
Well, the Jocelyns The Jocelyn's not only from Stubbs, but they're also from Brighton.
Yes.
And from Enams.
Yes.
Also.
Yes.
And the Kings, while they're down there, they're also from Diamond.
That's right, yes. Yes. And I must say, what you said tonight, I've learned a lot because I didn't know about the 1760s. But I have a real problem at the moment, and my mum is not well. She's here at the moment. She got stuck here during COVID. She hasn't been able to go home. We've got a house in Cane Garden. Now, I have a lasting power of attorney here, an English lasting power of attorney, and I've been trying to sort out her bank accounts in the Bank of St Vincent, and they said that the British lasting power of attorney is not recognised in St Vincent, but the American power of attorney, I've got the documents here, is. And I just want to say, from us children who are born here, because I was born here in 1971, that's my sister, and I find it a challenge when I go to St Vincent, like my mum is stuck here now, and I can't access anything because they say my lasting power of attorney is not recognised. When what I don't understand, people like from St Vincent come here, they do their bars here, they do their lawyer here. We're part of the Commonwealth. I don't understand what the lasting power of attorney is not recognised when I need to sort my mum's property out and her bank account has been seized. I can't get access to her bank account.
They actually wrote you a letter telling you that?
Yeah, Bank of St Vincent, I spoke to them and they told me my mum's...
No, I was not talking about they spoke to. Did the bank
St Vincent.
lawyer or the bank itself wrote your lawyer telling them that?
No, they told me.
Yeah. Did
Yes.
they? You have a copy of the letter?
I've got it.
I would love to look at it afterwards.
So
And,
I can't access nothing.
No. I don't understand the basis for that. But I would I don't know if the lawyer told you that as this thing from the bank writing.
The Bank of St Vincent told me, a lady called Miss Adams in the Bank of St Vincent. I spoke to her. Miss Adams from Bank of St Vincent told me straight that my lasting power of attorney, I can't access nothing. I cannot do nothing for my mum.
It couldn't be because not recognized. Maybe something about the power of attorney itself.
No, it's a.
Well, I would
registered with the public.
I'm speaking very guardedly because, I've practiced law for a long time.
Yes.
So if you permit me, I'd look at it and.
Yeah. I just need someone's help, someone to guide me.
I will look at it and take the information and I'll find out.
Thank you very much. I just need that help.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
God bless you.
Thank you very much. Prime Minister, we also have some, before we take the next question, we also have some comments and questions online. Someone called Mitchum78 said, glad that the PM is talking about the negative impact of colonialism, but now we need the power of the Commonwealth for the UK to use political will and political power to give reparation and recompense.
Well, we wrote David Cameron, that is to say CARICOM. We got a response. And subsequently, the current Prime Minister has been written. The matter is on the agenda for the 50th anniversary of CARICOM taking place in Trinidad in the first week in July. When Dave Cameron replied, he said that he wanted to join us in looking forward, not looking back. Well, I wish if he were here today to hear when I spoke, because the present is the past. We want to have this mature conversation. There are other steps which can be taken to the International Court of Justice for advisory opinions. But we'd like to have a structured conversation with the British government, a mature, structured conversation. And I'm telling you, the British government can duck it from now until thy kingdom come. It's not going off the agenda. I could tell you that. It's on the agenda. And the momentum is growing for that conversation to be held. In fact, His Majesty King Charles III, when he was Prince Charles, at the conference in Rwanda, the Commonwealth Heads of Government Conference, made the point that this is a conversation which the time of which has now come. We must have it. And we need to have it. And I want not just Caribbean people and people of Caribbean descent and Africans and others. I want every ethnicity, every class, every group in the United Kingdom for us to have that conversation. And there are a number of people who have the mistaken idea that reparations means to take money to give to individual people who are descendants of slaves. No. There are challenges which arise with that particular, arise with that particular approach. What we are talking about, you notice how I frame it. Native genocide and the enslavement of African bodies have caused historical legacies of underdevelopment which require to be repaired. And those legacies, we have to repair them. And we need, in that reparation, it requires also money. And we have to work together. In 2015, September, the United Nations, the 193 members of the United Nations, we all agreed on 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Goal 17 is to build efficacious partnerships, global partnerships between developed and developing countries, and to achieve things dealing with hunger, poverty, education, climate change issues, infrastructure, cities, etc., all the range of things. Well, this matter of reparations is a special feature of what is required to be done in relation to those countries which suffered from native genocide and enslavement of African bodies. And the case is compellingly strong, in fact, unanswerably strong. So if I have something which is unanswerably strong, even though my friends may not yet agree with me, I have to keep that conversation going. And we all have to keep it going and push and push and push.
Thank you very much. Prime Minister, do you have time for 2 more questions?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Yes, Dr. Regisford, please. And then we will take the gentleman in the blue.
1, 2.
After Dr. Registered, we'll have the gentleman in the back in the white T-shirt and then the gentleman in the light blue shirt. Please ask your question.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Honorable Prime Minister. Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. I am Dr. Deiana Regisford, and I say that because I want a moment of celebration. You've asked us to introduce ourselves, but I am the first black person in the world to have attained a PhD in social sculpture. I look at race and equity, and I look at the diaspora, how we, the scattered seeds of our African descendants, and as you so eloquently outlined in your historical lecture today, thank you so much for that, us living in the diaspora can bring together our intergenerational wealth by building our whole selves. And so I want to celebrate that today. My father is from St Vincent, and my mother's from Jamaica. We are from the Regisford family in Bridgetown.
The Bridgetown people.
Good, good, good. And my elder brother, as you well know, is the head of the Chamber of Commerce in St Vincent.
Yes.
My brother and sister join me here today, and we're here because we are talking as a family about intergenerational wealth building. Now, Prime Minister, allow me if I can, if you will. When you came a few months ago, you shared with us a diaspora strategy. I would love to hear more. You haven't mentioned that today. You've told us a lot. I know you can't mention everything. But this is my particular interest. It's linked to my body of work, which is called Evoking Belonging, which is social sculpture practice, looking at the social fabric, the socio-cultural fabric, and how we engage questions of race, equity, reparations, identity shaping. I'm interested in how we can connect this strategy and idea, this concept of the whole young person, this intergenerational wealth. My grandfather was a tailor. He went to Curacao at a certain time, and he came back and he said every one of his children, he wants them to go to school.
You went to work in the oil refinery.
In the oil refinery, thank you. And we have a number of PhDs in our family of 8 children. You mentioned the fact that childbirth is going down. My question is this. He focused on education, and you shared a lot about developments in education. I am very keen to work with Deiana. I'm providing strategic counsel, but I'm particularly interested in how we can engage the diaspora strategy that you're developing at home so that we can contribute to intergenerational wealth building. Thank you.
I want to say this. We established a regional integration and diaspora unit, and I will ask any and all of the organizations to interface with it, and for us to build a solidarity between persons and organizations here from the diaspora and redo the regional integration and diaspora unit. I also would like for those who are interested in investments to link with the Invest SVG. In fact, your brother is chairman of the board of Invest SVG, which is a state-owned company, which is a one-stop, Steve, location for investments in the country. And there are loads of inducements and concessions for investors, including our brothers and sisters from the diaspora. Either the next sitting of Parliament or the sitting thereafter, I'm taking a bill to Parliament to provide the opportunity for second-generation Vincentians to have citizenship of St Vincent and the Grenadines. At the moment, you have citizenship by descent. That is to say, you're born overseas of a Vincentian parent, you get your citizenship automatically. We want to do something similar, not the same, but similar for persons of the second generation. In other words, that one who is a Vincentian, who was born overseas, who got citizenship by descent, that his or her offspring must be able to get it also. So that's, we want to do that to strengthen the bonding. One of the things inside of homes, you need to be educating your families. If we don't do this, what we're going to have with the diaspora organizations is a lot of people who are migrants who came, and maybe some of those who are citizens by descent. Maybe. I look around the room, there is a large number of persons who are direct migrants from St Vincent and the Grenadines. Very few who are Vincentians by descent. And as the years go by, that's going to get worse. But you need, while you are part of British society, and you have to advance in British society, it is necessary and desirable for you also to have your Vincentianness, your Caribbeanness, and it must integrate and interface with your own involvement in the British society. Look, we don't just have to take some of the individuals who are in politics as just isolated examples. You have them on the Labour side, and you have them on the Tory side in Britain. Persons who are migrants or descendants of migrants who hold the highest offices of state in the land. My brother's boss, political boss, is a Hindu whose parents came from India. As we say, you're in this business, masa bull, masa cow.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. We'll now take the question from the gentleman in the white T-shirt.
It's me.
Okay, Chris.
Mr. Prime Minister, good evening. My name is Chris. I'm from Clare Valley. 2 questions, please, if I may. Firstly, initially, you spoke about improving the lives of Vincentians in St Vincent and the Grenadines. My first question is, crime is quite high in St Vincent and the Grenadines. Is there a new implementation that the government of St Vincent will be doing? And secondly, I'm from South Leeward. I would like to know whether or not there's any new projects in the pipeline for the South Leeward district.
Yes. There are several projects in the South Leeward area, actually, which are ongoing in relation to health and education, physical infrastructure. And the biggest hotel is on the border with South Leeward. A lot of people from South Leeward are working there currently, and no doubt will get work there. When Sandals opens in March next year, 303 rooms. Just by the way, if I may say this, between now and the first quarter of 2026, just on the big projects alone, you have about 1.4, 1.5 billion US dollars worth of private sector and public sector investment, just on the big projects alone. I'm not talking about small ones. So there's a phenomenal amount of investment to be there, and it's straining the capacity of the country to implement. On the question of citizen security and the matter of crime, and particularly homicides, this is a matter which requires involvement with the family, the community, the churches, the schools, the state institutions, the courts, the police, the like. Education, for instance. Primary, early childhood, primary and secondary education, properly done with supportive quality parenting, is an anti-crime measure. Civil society workings, sports and culture. I never see a fella who playing pan, or playing football, or who playing cricket, who involved in music, getting involved in criminal activities. Those who are members of the Cadet Corps. The Cadet Corps was 100 persons when I arrived in office. It's now 1,400, including the Marine wing of the Cadet Corps. None of them gets involved in crime. The vast majority of young persons are not involved in crime. But there are a tiny minority of young males who are involved in serious crime. It's a phenomenon that we see across the Western world. What are people who go to crime mainly? Young males who come from broken or dysfunctional homes, young males who drop out of school, don't take advantage of the educational opportunities or any other job opportunities which may be available. They get involved with associational groupings and envelop themselves in a culture of crime, fascination with guns. A lot of guns come out of the United States. You know, the Second Amendment there, they have a right to bear arms. We don't make guns in St. Vincent or bullets. They come easily from the United States. Fashioned easily too, with quick money, through drugs. Now, if we are honest and we have an honest conversation, these are the critical elements you would notice too. And if you look at it would be a very odd case that you don't find fitting in one of those things which I'm telling you about. And that's why I tell you this is not a quick fix matter. This is a matter which everybody has to be involved with. You can't not pay attention as a mother and father to your young boy. And when he reaches 14, you say, well, he's not my problem anymore, that's Ralph's problem. Well, it's all of our problem. But I want to emphasize this. The overwhelming majority of young males are doing extremely well. But there is a tiny minority. And there are all kinds of associational group dynamics and between rival groups, with not yet solidifying in gangs, as in the Jamaican context, but which help to fuel some areas of crime. But again, overwhelmingly, St. Vincent and Grenadines is a safe place. But we have this challenge, which is not one for an easy fix. Some may seek to exploit it, but exploiting it is not solving it.
Thank you very much. And I'm very conscious of the time that we have remaining. So unfortunately, we will only take 2 more questions from the floor.
I'm in your hands.
At this time, I'll have the gentleman please take the floor. Could you please state your name?
Yes, my name is Osborne Artman. I'm actually from Bristol. I live in Bristol, but I was born in St Vincent. I came to England when I was 5 years old.
What's your family name?
Artman, but I'm also family to the Patricks as well.
You related to Joseph Artman?
Joseph Artman, that's correct. Yeah, he's my.
Joseph is your father?
That's right. Yeah.
And therefore, Mother Sandy is your grandmother.
That's correct. Yes, that's correct. That's correct. So, on the other side of my family are the Patricks. So I come from the Artmans and the Patricks. And this question...
Well, the Patricks from Chester Cottage?
Patricks, actually, they could be the same ones, but the Patricks that live in Georgetown. Titus Patrick, Reverend Elroy Patrick.
Yeah. And they related?
Yeah.
As soon as you go up Chester on the left-hand side of the road, after about 3 houses, you meet the Patricks.
So that's my family. I'm very proud to be a Vincentian. But my uncle, who's Reverend Elroy Patrick, fielded this question. So firstly, I'd like to thank you for the good work that you've done, the building of the sea wall in Georgetown. Brilliant work there. His question was, this is what his question was. With the recent building of the deep sea port, are there any plans for further work to negate the further erosion of the windward side? And Mr. Elroy Patrick, is particularly asking this for the future generations on the windward side, but particularly Georgetown. I think you've partly answered the question.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
but I want to say this. Is the entire East Coast, not just up in Georgetown, the entire East Coast, and also on the West Coast, when you have left-handed storms, like left-handed Lenny, which eat away Leyu. And I had to do a sea defense project there, about $20 million with a lovely boardwalk. But it's more acute on the eastern side, because that's the Atlantic side. That's where the northeast trade winds hit mainly, and that's where the seas are rougher. So you have greater sea erosion, coastal erosion on the northeastern side. Those who are passing by Shipping Bay, they will see that we have cut inside further, and we are doing a project there for sea defense at Shipping Bay. Those who go down by Black Point, you see we have done one. Those, my brother Patrick will know that when we were building the Rabaka Bridge, we took advantage of the Taiwanese being on the ground and let them do some sea defense by just when you pass Basin Hole Bridge going towards Rabaka, on the opposite side where Ancilla Balcom live. I know Ancilla died. But it costs a tremendous amount of money. The Sandy Bay one, for instance, is most urgent. Yeah, I'll tell you something about Georgetown. In 1947, a study was done at the extent of the erosion. So there was a baseline in 1947. Then the Labour Party did a study in 72, 73. Sorry, in 71, 72. And then since we came to office, we have done 3 studies in Georgetown. And we did the studies aerial. And it's easier to do them now with the technology of the drones. More than 3, between 1947 and now, more than 3 cricket pitch in length. That's what I want to put it. You know, cricket pitch is 22 yards. More than 3 cricket pitch in length of land has been eroded. It's a serious problem. That's why we are asking for the money for climate change, mitigation and adaptation. We ain't contribute to it, but yet this is what is happening. And you see, the problem is this. The scientists knew from the 1890s that because of the Industrial Revolution was happening with increased global warming, but it has only become very acute in the period in the latter part of the 20th century and the early 21st century. And there are 3 big conventions addressing this. United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, under which, for instance, the Paris Accord in 2015 was fashioned. There is the United Nations Framework on Biodiversity. And a very critical one, not a very sexy one, like the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, is the United Nations Framework Convention on Desertification, Land Degradation, and Drought. Fact, over the last 3 hurricane seasons, the hurricane season begins on June the 1st. On June the 1st, in 2 of the last 3 years, including this year, the hurricane season began in a condition of drought in the country. The seasons have gone quite topsy-turvy. When I was a boy, on the back of the exercise books, colonialism used to give us some exercise book with some things on the back. I was quite surprised, for instance, to learn that the pound wasn't $4.80 our money. It was fixed there for so long. Later on, you realize central banks would carry it up and down. That same, they had a little ditty. June too soon. July standby. August come it must. September, remember. October, it's all over. Well, June is not too soon, and it's not over in October, because one of the worst ones we had was Christmas Eve, December the 24th, 2013. The matter what we are seeing, there are unusual happenings. Remember that word, unusual? Remember the other U? Unprecedented in their frequency and their harshness. And the third U, urgent. And this climate change issue. Unusual, unprecedented, urgent. And it will cost hundreds of millions of dollars. Between what we have done at Georgetown, just did at Georgetown, in the worst parts, and what we are doing at Sandy Bay, is nearly $70 million. That's just those two small areas. So you could imagine the whole course. Very expensive business. And the other thing is this. One of the things which we have been fighting with the multilateral agencies which deal with lending, and also those like the Caribbean Development Bank regionally, is to move with speed on these things. We began the project for Sandy Bay, initially the study, after 2013. Then there was 2016 and 2017 problems. And on each, the initial project was to cost $10 million. It's now 42 and rising. Because nature does not wait on human beings. So that for the banks, you do the design. The design is done when the condition is in a particular way. But you have further sea erosion. By the time you take the design, they say, well, the situation is now far worse. You have to do another assessment. And so it moved from 10 million to 42 million. And none of that is grant. I have to borrow the money, but I have to save Sandy Bay. For several reasons. It's a beautiful village, and there are people there, but critically, I can't allow where the British put them after they were defeated, Steve. And then I can't save it from the sea. Nah. But you guys have to help us.
From the floor, there is a question on YouTube from Low Archer, and I'm going to read it verbatim. Hello, Ralph. Your father, Alban, and my father... Hello? Good. This question is from Low Archer, and as I said before, I'm reading it verbatim. Hello, Ralph. Your father, Alban, and my father, George, known as Placid, are cousins, and I am exploring our genealogy. Are there records available in St. Vincent that I might examine?
There are records at the in the registry. Actually, in 1996, I began some research, and I took about 3 months off because what happened, I was doing a lot of work, and I had a big case where I made a lot of money on as a defense lawyer. So I decided to take 3 months off. I put my jeans and my t-shirt and my sneakers on, and I went to the registry every day and did the research about the Madeirans in St. Vincent. And I actually wrote a manuscript. When I became Prime Minister, well, I began the work, I had my notebooks and everything, and I had it in my study, at my personal home, and then the people who moved my stuff to carry them to the Prime Minister's residence, they lost my manuscript and my notebook. I hope to get back to it, but I could guide anybody who wants to go and do it. I know where all the stuff is. So that's will be my answer. But he can talk to me, and I can tell him the story.
Thank you very much. We have one final question. One final question. So we have 3 persons, but one final question. Unfortunately, we do not have time. The lady that's holding the microphone, you can go ahead and ask your question.
My name is Jenny Lewis. This is just a simple question to the Prime Minister. Is there a body that has control over for the solicitors in St. Vincent? Is there a bar association where a person can make their complaint if there's something wrong?
There is a bar association. And you can also make your complaints to the Honorable Attorney General, who is titular head of the bar. And in St. Vincent, the professions of both barrister and solicitor are fused. Not like in some jurisdictions where they are divergent, divorced from each other. And right now, the Attorney General's drafts at the Attorney General's office, the draftspersons, the legal draftspersons, are drafting a legal profession bill because the existing law and the mechanisms are inadequate, insufficient for the purposes in this modern period and for the large increase in the numbers of legal practitioners. I have heard some horror stories, and they go without appropriate justice meted out. We do not have in our country, or ought never to have, a legalocracy. No. When I practiced law, up to 2001, before I became Prime Minister, there were stories, but they were dealt with in a more responsible and efficacious way. Now there appears not to be that same approach. And where certain kinds of suasion have failed to produce results, it is necessary and desirable for the Parliament to intervene, to put a particular framework in place to protect lawyers and to protect the clients. I say protect lawyers because if you have an independent process and everything is fine with the lawyer can say, I have nothing to hide, and subjects himself or herself, or they're subjected to the process, and they can be cleared if that is justifiable. So that protects people where there may be just allegations being made. And of course, for the clients, for the persons who are aggrieved, who have complaints, to have those complaints put through a particular system which is transparent and which can provide justice. So there's a bill which is coming to Parliament called the Legal Profession Bill.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. And we have come, unfortunately, to the end of our question and answer segment. We are not able to take any more questions. But I would just like us to put our hands together and appreciate the Prime Minister. Thank you very much. I'll now turn over to Brian, who would take us to the end of the program. And also, we'll have the vote of thanks.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we're going to have the vote of thanks from Gail-Ann, de Silva.
I'll tell you, de Silva is also. De Silva is a Portuguese name. Of her parents also came, at least one side. Well, you're married. You're a Balcombe married. Well, Balcombe is also a mixture. Basil Balcombe's mother was half, as you know, was Calinago and half was Portuguese. So you have, on the Balcombe side, you have half of Portuguese blood. And on the married side, de Silva is a name which comes out of Madeira. And interestingly also, you may find a number of de Silvas who are Indians. You'll find a number of persons of Indian descent in St. Vincent who carry Portuguese names. They got the Portuguese surnames because when they came and they went to live in the same barracks on the plantations, they became, the Portuguese became, in some cases, became godparents of the Indian children. And they acquired the name of the godparents rather than a long Indian name which the registrar couldn't spell. Basil Balcombe came from the soil, the roots. And Basil, when the European planter class failed, they sold their estates to Basil Balcombe to make a success of them.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. Okay, my task this afternoon is to thank everyone who has put together this program so successfully. And firstly, I would wish to give a huge thank you to Dr. the Honorable Ralph E. Gonsalves, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, for taking the time to be with us this evening and to share the information and updates about our beautiful country, St. Vincent. Thank you. Thank you for the great history lesson this afternoon and the context in this gathering of nationals. Our young generation needs to be also reminded of our heritage and history, as it seems to be quite lacking. So thank you very much. Thank you for the information on all the great projects that are going on in St. Vincent and the Grenadines at the moment, cultural, educational, and the physical infrastructures. One thing that stuck out in my mind is the fact that persons who are now on dialysis, and I know that for each of us it would be different, but persons who are now having dialysis can now receive their treatment free of charge. So no longer would we see fundraising and GoFundMe pages. We now have the line, "No one left to die." So thank you again, Prime Minister, for being with us and for giving you your time.
Thank you very much, my friend.
I also want to thank our MP for High Wycombe, Steve Baker, for being with us this afternoon. I know that your schedule must be very busy. And we just want to say a special thank you for giving your time to be with us on this special occasion. I next want to thank the Minister Council and Charge d'Affaires of the High Commission of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ms. Jinelle Adams, and the staff of the High Commission of St Vincent and the Grenadines for their hard work in putting this together this evening. Miss Apostle Rosemary Artman for giving us that luscious prayer this evening. Thank you so much for opening with that prayer. Our brief remarks by the Chair of National Council, Deiana Stapleton. Thank you so much for enlightening us and for pushing the St Vincent program. So this evening would not have been possible if you weren't here with us. And so we'd like to thank the audience for taking part in the discussion and for being such a wonderful audience. So if you give yourselves a round of applause. So thank you and have a very, very good evening.
Okay, before we all leave, so the bar is open still. There's going to be food for sale, so we're going to open the shutters here. So if you just do that now. Have a safe journey home, everybody, and take care. Thank you.